Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are getting started. To begin our time together, we want to take a moment to acknowledge the land we're on in the city of Oakland and the East Bay. We are on Huichin, the ancestral and unceded land of the Chochenyu speaking Ohlone people, the successors of the sovereign Verona Band of Alameda County. This land was and continues to be of great importance to the Lishan and Muwakma Ohlone and other familial descendants of the Verona Band. We recognize the forced removal of indigenous peoples from their ancestral lands and the deliberate and systematic destruction of their communities and culture. We also lift up that land acknowledgement by itself is a small gesture. It becomes meaningful when coupled with authentic relationships and informed actions. I am still learning, we are still learning, and will forever be learning the rightful history of indigenous peoples, the history of genocide and displacement, as well as their cultural resistance, resilience, and persistence in the Bay Area. Thank you for joining us again. I'm Anika Howard. I'm the fund manager of the Just City Cultural Fund. And joining me today is Vanessa Wang, Senior Advisor for the Just City Cultural Fund. Vanessa, would you like to say a few words to our guests?
Thanks, Anika. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My role as a senior advisor has been from the beginning of the program as just as a thought partner to our funder consortium and trying to hold the vision of radical imagination for racial justice. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Vanessa. Now we'd also like to invite our fund partners to say hello that are with us. Roberto Bedoya, City of Oakland Cultural Affairs Manager from the Cultural Affairs Division, Cecilia Chin from Akonadi Foundation, and Deborah Giles from East Bay Community Foundation. Please feel free to drop in and say a few words.
Again, I'd just like to welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon, and pretty excited about this partnership. Again, the City of Oakland and Akonadi and East Bay. But what we're doing and what we're attempting to do for the next 3 years initially is different, exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of this this new endeavor. So again, thank you for joining us. Hopefully you get all your questions answered today, and if not, we will be around. Again, Deborah Giles, Senior Program Officer, Director, I should say, East Bay Community Foundation.
Thank you, Deborah. Cecilia, if you're with us, or Roberto, if you're with us, please feel free to say a few words.
Hi, this is Cecilia Chen from Akonadi Foundation. I just want to echo everyone's appreciation for all the folks who are on this call today. Akonadi is so thrilled to continue to be a partner in this work in partnership with East Bay Community Foundation and the City of Oakland. We are deeply appreciative of all the work and space you all are holding, and really excited to see the incredible ideas that come out through this process, and really the vision that collectively we're all holding to build a racially just Oakland. So thank you again, and yeah, just deeply appreciative to be part of this space.
Wonderful. Thank you, Cecilia. Thank you, Deborah. Just wanted to also acknowledge Roberto Bedoya, our City of Oakland Cultural Affairs Manager, the Cultural Affairs Division. So we want to also give everyone an opportunity to introduce yourselves in the chat. So we do have a chat feature, And we'd like you to drop in the chat right now, your name, your organization or cultural group, a social issue you feel fired up about. Go ahead and drop that in the chat right now. We want to see that chat go off right now. We want to see it and hear you, see you, feel your energy, say hello. As we share and you also introduce yourselves, we want to also again welcome you to this space. I'm going to be going onto the agenda and giving an overview of what our time will look like together. Thank you, everybody who's saying hello in the chat. So here's our webinar agenda. We just kind of gave a welcome and introduction. And today we are going to talk about the partnership and the Just City Cultural Fund, a bit about its history. We will review the eligibility and application process. We'll discuss what the criteria is for applying, the application requirements, the timeline that we're on, and how you might be able to receive technical assistance or access assistance for the application. At the end of the webinar, we will host a Q&A. And so during our time together, you're also able to use the Q&A feature. As questions come up for you, feel free to take notes on your own, write them down, put them in your Google Notes or Docs, but also you can use the Q&A feature and we will review those questions at the end of today's webinar. Moving forward, I want to give a bit of background about the partnership and the fund. So the Just City Cultural Fund is a public-private partnership between the City of Oakland Cultural Affairs Division, the Akonadi Foundation, and East Bay Community Foundation. This philanthropic Voltron brings together the cultural equity vision of Oakland's Cultural Affairs Division, the racial justice mission of the Akonadi Foundation, and the commitment to building power in the East Bay by the East Bay Community Foundation. Belonging in Oakland, the Just City Cultural Fund is made possible with major funding from the Surdna Foundation Thriving Cultures Program and funding from the Akonadi Foundation and East Bay Community Foundation. Launched in the spring of 2020 as the world was engulfed in the uncertainty of the pandemic, Belonging in Oakland, a Just City Cultural Fund was launched to support the arts and cultural sector, to reframe the crisis of COVID as a new opportunity to reimagine a new normal, a new paradigm, and how Oakland might be transformed into a more equitable and just city. In the fall of 2021, the next funding round gave cultural groups 2 years to implement projects that challenge the mechanisms of systemic racism and lift the voices and perspectives of communities most impacted by social injustice. The fund aims to support and resource BIPOC-led civic, cultural, and social justice organizations who bring to life radical ideas that reimagine how we operate and move as a society, ideas that will be developed, tested, and documented by and with community over a 3-year period. From narrative shifts to policy prototypes to a new community power building structure, the Just City Cultural Fund really seeks to expand the realm of what is possible to achieve racial justice. In this 2023 to 2026 funding round, the fund will support collaborations working together with communities to radically transform power relations through a culturally informed policy lens. Collaborations may seek to redefine the framing of a problem or solution, engage in cross-sector partnerships, reclaim traditional ways, invigorate community assets, or explore other promising approaches to achieving racial justice. Being rooted and based in Oakland is a critical concept for the fund, and we're looking for collaborations that are deeply rooted in Oakland's communities and have the commitment and capacity to work with community members to address an opportunity or challenge. A community may be geographically, ethnically, or culturally defined. It may also be a community of identity based on, for example, age, faith, sexual orientation, gender identity, or immigration status. The fund will award no more than 3 community-centered collaborations with grants of $100,000 per year for 3 years, in addition to a $12,000 stipend each year toward life-sustaining expenses for the artists and cultural practitioners that are part of the collaboration. The program also includes networking and peer learning support for awardees, which we will talk about in further detail in just a bit. We really want to emphasize that the fund seeks to support BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color-led policy change collaborations whose visions are rooted in the communities that are most impacted by structural racism. We want to make sure that we highlight, we are talking about Oakland-based BIPOC-led groups, a cultural organization collaborating with a social change organization collaborating with a cultural organization, and groups that work with civically oriented artists and cultural practitioners in Oakland. Eligibility requires that these groups are a 501c3 or 501c4, or that they are 501c3 fiscally sponsored, and that the operating budget is at least $500,000. Eligible organizations must either have nonprofit status or be fiscally sponsored by a nonprofit and have a proven record of shaping racial and social justice oriented policies or practices in sectors like community development, economic justice, educational equity, environmental justice, sustainability, food justice, for example. And we're really seeking organizations that can form or will continue collaborations, again, with civically engaged BIPOC artists, cultural practitioners, and focus on rooting out systemic inequality. And now I'm going to turn it over to Vanessa, who will discuss in greater detail what the fund is looking to support and what aligns. Vanessa?
Thank you, Anika. Yes, so in terms of what we will fund, for those of you who are familiar with this program and the earlier iterations of it, each year it has changed somewhat, and each round, I should say, it has changed somewhat. And in each round, we're trying to go deeper and to support work in a more substantial way, which is why the number of grants keeps lessening in order to make sure that the collaborations, which obviously take time and work to be successful, are supported sufficiently. But the through line in this is definitely we continue to look for radical imaginings of what a just Oakland can look like, and that will really counter oppressive racialized policies. And so we're looking for prototypes, perhaps ideas about how to move the needle on systemic oppression, things that are transformative approaches to establishing a more just and equitable Oakland. We are looking for things that really support communities that have been historically oppressed by systemic racism, and really lifting up their voices, their wisdom, and strengthening their self-determination to create a city that really looks just to them, and to and to all communities of Oakland. And we do want to lift up life ways and value systems that perhaps have been suppressed or oppressed, and whose wisdoms that we really want to see brought forward about different ways that we can solve some of our thorniest problems. And in doing so, to really produce a policy change oriented prototype or example, or even potentially legislation that could help Oakland become more just and equitable. And this is the important point of this particular round of the Just City Cultural Fund, is that it really needs to be, this round is focusing on not just the radical imaginings of a just city, but really looking at how can we move those systems that continue to kind of hold us in this pattern of injustice, and to break it open, and how can we find new tools to build a new system or that can really manifest more justice for all of our communities. And so it's that moving the policy needle that we are looking for as a result of this 3-year investment. Do you want to take the next slide? So because we have a very specific kind of result that we're looking for, we know and value and all of the different ways that cultural workers in Oakland do their work, and we value them, and we know that they're necessary for a vibrant cultural sector. However, because we have a very narrow goal that we're looking for in terms of policy shift, we aren't, and because we don't have enough resources, we will not be able to fund in this iteration of the program activities to influence the outcome of elections. And partly this is just due to a requirement that we have, that 501c3s actually are not allowed to do that. Campaigns for building maintenance, construction, or purchase of buildings or of endowments. Projects with the sole purpose of putting artistic works before an audience. So we're not saying that we won't support putting artistic works in front of an audience, but ones that really only have that as a sole purpose will not really be eligible for this particular opportunity. And it would have to be more toward having that be a strategy to work for this social change and social policy change, and training activities with the sole purpose of helping individuals develop artistic skills. So it can't be just an artistic education program, though they are very valuable. We are looking for work that could involve some training, but again, with the main goal of looking at how can that contribute to policy change. And I see we've been joined by Roberta. So Roberta, if you'd like to unmute yourself and say a few words to the group and about this opportunity.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Anika. Thank you, Deborah. My colleagues associated with this opportunity. My apologies for being late. I'm an old man. Technology kind of gets the better of me, but we're really happy that the partners are able to, and Celia, excuse me, from Akonadi Foundation, who's also joining us, to help launch this opportunity. This origin story, the Just City Fund was prompted by the Oakland Cultural Plan, belonging in Oakland, and when I often think about belonging, I think about disbelonging, the policies that prevent people feeling that they have a sense of home, they have a sense of place that they belong to each other. I don't know what was already said, but I'll just leave it at that. That sometimes the policy change that we hope this opportunity will support can do some of the shifts, that the cultural shifts that need to happen, so that the politics of disbelonging, redlining, or wearing drag at the school, at the library, whatever it may be, are addressed, and we would have a more just city. Thanks.
Thank you, Roberto, and thank you, Vanessa, for that introduction, and Roberto, that history and refinement of our purpose together with the Just City Fund. We want to move into the application process and talk about what this looks like for this round. Again, this Just City Fund cycle is for 3 grants. 3 grants total of $100,000 per year will be awarded to 3 collaborative partnerships. And the application process really is a 2-step process. It is first beginning with your letter of interest or LOI, and then an invitation to submit a full proposal. So in step 1, you will be able to submit a letter of interest on our online portal, which we will discuss in just a moment. You can find the link to the application on the Just City website. This letter of interest will ask some basic information about the collaboration, rather project. You'll be able to answer 6 narrative questions, 200 words per question, to describe what it is you're intending. You'll need to provide an organizational budget as well as a work sample for the collaboration. To give a bit more context and detail, before you're able to submit a letter of interest, you'll need to begin with the eligibility questions. You'll have 4 questions that you'll need to answer. Are you an Oakland-based BIPOC-led organization with the eligible status that we did discuss earlier, 501c3 or 501c4, or be a fiscally sponsored project? Are you a social change organization or cultural organization that works with civically oriented artists and cultural practitioners? And if so, are you collaborating? How are you collaborating? Do you have an operating budget of $500,000 or more? Something that was mentioned earlier on that is also really critical is that applicants and partnerships or collaborations are really deeply rooted in Oakland. We want to ensure that there's the commitment and capacity, that there is a depth, a history of this work, and that the groups are organized, whether it's geographically within the city, ethnically or culturally defined. Also, to highlight a note about the 501c4 status, grant funds to 501c4 organizations can be used for direct or grassroots lobbying activities, but it cannot be used for anything that qualifies as a campaign contribution or as we described earlier. In the online portal, which is based in SurveyMonkey, you'll see a screen here that once you pass the eligibility requirements and answer yes to those questions, if that is accurate and true for your group, you will see these 5 items that you'll need to complete. As you complete each section, you can save it and go back. Each area will highlight green to show that you've completed it, and it will move you on to the next section. In terms of the LOIs and how they're going to be reviewed, they'll first be reviewed and ranked by the fund's leadership team, which includes myself, Vanessa, our fund partners. We all are deeply rooted in Oakland, cultural practitioners, racial justice practitioners, and committed to equity landscapes. And so we'll be bringing that lens to the letters of interest that we receive. In terms of the information that you'll need to provide, general organizational information will be required. You will need to provide contact information for the lead applicant and also be able to provide the contact information of the fiscal sponsor if it's applicable, the name and contact information of a collaborative partner, and the name and contact information of the principal cultural partners and artistic disciplines that'll be involved. You'll also speak to the sectors and issue areas that this collaboration would address, as well as the neighborhood or community focus of the collaboration. Up to 15 applications will be invited to submit a full proposal in late August. And the proposal will be due within 3 weeks of an invitation once the letters of intent have been received. The application process will ask you to respond to narrative questions, and I want to share them. All this information is available on the website as well as in the actual online application. But the questions are, what vision for Just Oakland do you have in the sector or issue area you've chosen? If you are principally a community organizing or social change organization, why do you think it's important to collaborate with an artist or cultural practitioner to achieve the vision you have? If you are principally a cultural organization, why is it important to collaborate with a community organization or social change group to achieve the vision? Number 3, what community or communities are centered in your collaboration, and what's your history of working together with them? 4, what are your principles for working collaboratively with organizational and individual partners toward a common goal? What is your history with your identified partners, if any? Provide an example of social justice policy change work you've engaged with in these communities. And lastly, an important part of the program is sharing learnings and results with the broader field. How would you share the learnings and results of your collaboration? Who do you think would benefit most from them? Applicants that are invited to submit a full proposal in late August will receive an honorarium of $300 to offset the cost of submitting that proposal. Once the applications are received by the deadline, a peer review panel will meet to discuss the applications and recommend 3 collaborations for 3-year funding. Awardees will be approved by the East Bay Community Foundation's Board of Directors, and awards will be announced in late October 2023. Just to review the criteria once again for the letters of interest, we'll be looking at the potential impact of the proposed policy change that your collaboration wants to enact that leads to a just Oakland and your vision of a just Oakland. We want to see a depth of understanding of the importance of the cultural and aesthetics elements for equity and social change. We want to understand that there's a quality of relationship and engagement between the partners and the communities that are centered in the collaboration. The fund's peer readers and panelists will be cultural leaders and activists who understand the historical grounding and cultures of a wide range of Black, Indigenous, people of color communities in Oakland. In bringing these readers and panelists together, the fund has a goal of creating a thoughtful mix of racial, ethnic, age, and gender considerations that are inclusive of LGBTQ+ people of color, as well as other targeted and marginalized communities. We want to really offer some guiding questions and points with regards to the letter of interest and what will strengthen your letter of interest. What is the strength of the vision of social transformation for Oakland and the actions prompted by it? Is there clarity and resonance around the policy ideas for the issues that you seek to address? Is there a strength around the capacity that the collaborative partnership has and a track record for partners to make positive social change? Is there a strength in the partnership with the artists and cultural practitioners that you've identified as collaborators? And what is the relevance and resonance of the cultural and aesthetic practices or values that you're proposing in relationship to the participating communities? And again, the depth of engagement and relationship with the collaborative partners and the community centered in the work. In addition to these criteria, factors like geography, cultural and issue diversity may also be considered in selecting those who are invited to a full proposal. So to recap the application process, there are 2 steps. The first step is submitting a letter of interest once you've completed the eligibility form. The second step is an invitation to submit a full proposal. Up to 15 applicants will be invited to submit a full proposal in late August, and the proposal will be due within 3 weeks of that invitation. This is a complete process for the application from start to finish. A few other things that we want to highlight and make sure that you do recognize about the fund. It is $100,000 per year for 3 years. Up to 3 partnerships and collaborations will be awarded the grant. So out of the letters of interest that are received and reviewed, 15 groups will be invited to submit a full proposal. Those full proposals will be read and reviewed by fund partners as well as the peer review panelists. And of those 15, 3 groups will be selected to receive the award. In addition to the $100,000 per year for 3 years, there will be a life-sustaining stipend awarded of $12,000 to cover expenses like healthcare, childcare, student debt, restorative time or activities, or other such expenses. This is to really recognize that we know that there are hidden costs associated with maintaining cultural practices and social justice practices in Oakland's communities of color. Additionally, up to $25,000 will be provided as a stipend for documentation. We want to make sure that we are documenting the learning and outcomes resulting from the collaboration, particularly with regard to narrative changes, policy arguments or frameworks, or community structures that lead to this vision of a just city that we want to be able to share with the field. The amount for this documentation will be negotiated and may vary based on the scope of the plans for the collaboration and the capacity to carry out that scope. The fund will be able to assist with documentation should the collaboration not really be willing or able to take that on. This grant does not require a match, and there are other supports that we like to offer, such as peer networking and learning, convening funded collaborations at the beginning of the grant period to learn about one another's plans and determine with the fund what kind of additional learning the group would like to participate in together. There may also be opportunities for ongoing networking among awardees and capacity building around cultural strategy. Just to recap, to be awarded the grant, the lead applicant of the collaboration has to be prepared also to create a memorandum of understanding that outlines the respective roles of the partners, the responsibilities, and a general budget allocations for each of the collaborative members, including the fiscal sponsor if applicable, also to provide a plan and budget for documentation, and if requesting a stipend for documentation, providing a plan for that. This memorandum of understanding needs to be a mutually agreed upon plan and align with the fund on reporting requirements. The reporting requirements will be that near the close of each of the grant periods, the collaborations will be asked to share and report on their progress, report on how they're reaching their shared goals, what they've learned with their communities. And the form of the reporting will be based on the nature of each collaboration and what the fund will need to track. The requirements for the reporting will be negotiated between the awardees and the fund before the awards are made, so that we ensure there's mutual benefit and possibilities for sharing our learnings and understanding of the work moving with the field. To revisit the online portal, this is generally what you will see once you go to the online portal and register as an applicant. You will first complete the eligibility requirements. Once your eligibility is determined, you will complete the section around the letter of interest requirements. You'll be asked to share information about the disciplines and geography, respond to the narrative questions that we reviewed just a few slides ago, provide your financial information, which is the budget for the last year, and a work sample. The application for this program is online for SurveyMonkey, and it is also known as SMA. All the applications will be submitted through this process. So you'll need to create an account if you're a first-time user. There are FAQs also available on the website. You'll be able to download that information, and there's also tips to support you in completing the application. We want to make sure that you have enough time to complete the application, and also we encourage you and suggest that you develop the collaboration description and narrative in a Word or Google Doc beforehand, so that the collaboration can take place with the partnership. You can review things before submitting. And when you're ready, you're able to upload and cut and paste all of that information into the Smart Apply app. You'll be able to save your work and come back to it. And we want to make sure that everyone is really prepared to complete this process at least a week before the due date. We want to encourage you not to wait until that last moment to submit your information, as late applications will not be received. So to review the timeline here, these are the deadlines and critical dates that you'll need to be aware of and align with. The deadline to submit your letter of intent through SurveyMonkey and Smart Apply is 5 p.m. on July 31st. That's in a few weeks. By late August, those that have been moved on to the next stage and invited to submit a full proposal will receive an email, and there will be 48 hours available for you to accept or decline the opportunity to submit the full proposal. September 22nd, the full proposals are due by 5 p.m. And by late October, 3 projects will be awarded and announced. Between September 22nd and late October is when the review process will take place with the peer review panelists and the fund team. And by November 2024, the grant period will begin. This is a 3-year grant period, so it is from 2023 to 2026. Again, tips and how-to PDFs for the complete application process are on the website. You can go to the bottom of the East Bay Community Foundation's application site for all of these tools. We want to make sure, again, you begin your letter of interest at least a week before the submission deadline. You're able to download all the guidelines, the complete application text as a PDF so that you can see it in advance and have all of the questions, the tips for how to use the application portal, and the frequently asked questions are all available to download on the website. If you have further questions or need assistance, you can contact me, Anika, the fund manager at Just City Fund at eastbaycf.org. And you are also able to schedule 15-minute phone clinics with me Wednesdays and Thursdays between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. Pacific. You can do that by following the Calendly link you see on the screen, but it also is available on the fund website. Definitely encourage you to take advantage of this time and come prepared with the specific questions that you have. I definitely want to offer as much support and technical assistance as I can to support you in getting your applications in. With that, that is the conclusion of the webinar, and we are now opening it up for our Q&A. And I see that we have about 11 questions in the Q&A chat. Pardon me, it's like my mouse is doing something a little funky there. Vanessa is going to also support in answering these questions. So let's get going. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us through that presentation. So I'm going to start with Alicia Greenwell. The question is, do both orgs need to be a nonprofit with 500K operating budget or just one of them? So there needs to be a lead applicant. And yes, that lead applicant needs to have 501c3 status, 501c4 status, or be a fiscally sponsored project. And yes, the budget has to be at least 500K.
May I add something?
Sure.
Yeah, so in terms of the lead applicant having a budget of 500K or more, part of that has to do with there is a responsibility of the lead applicant to be able to administer these funds. And so we just want to make sure that there is capacity for dealing with a partnership or collaboration of this particular scale. And being able to handle the funding of $100,000 a year for 3 years. So that was the rationale.
Thank you for that question. Thank you, Vanessa, for that context. Elisa, the question that you have was, does policy change have to be legislative? What are other examples of policy change? Vanessa, I want to kick that over to you.
Yeah, sure. No, it doesn't have to be legislative. And again, to give you some context, this program is part of a national initiative of the Surdna Foundation called Radical Imagination for Racial Justice. And the Surdna Foundation is interested in policy shift, kinds of programs that could possibly be inspiration to or replicated in other parts of the country, and for us even in different parts of the state, or at different levels, you know, either at the city level, at the county level, potentially at the state level. It doesn't necessarily have to be legislative, though we're looking for things that do address systems. So I can give you an example. Say there are challenges right now in schools around curriculum and about certain issues that are talked about in terms of our history and the racialization of things in our country. So say you were working on something that had to do with a curriculum that would influence an entire school system or something like that, or around book banning in school libraries, for example. So that's not legislative, but it does have public reach beyond, say, a single classroom or a single school and that sort of thing. So we are looking for examples of things that can go to scale in a systemic way. And I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you. I think that did. Please continue to ask questions in the Q&A chat. If you have questions that come up and you're listening, feel free to include your questions there. Another question has come in from Leva. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Who is qualified as an advocacy or social justice partner? Could it be a service agency who works with the target population? So we are focused on providing the 3-year grants to BIPOC-led collaborations between cultural and social change organizations. These are organizations that have a proven record of shaping racial and social justice-oriented practices or policies. We're talking about issues that impact BIPOC communities' ability to live in a just city. So those issues cross multiple sectors within the social justice space and or advocacy space. We're looking at sectors like Vanessa just mentioned. It could be an educational equity issue. It could be a community development concern, an economic justice concern, an environmental issue. And really, we're looking at collaborations that can prototype solutions and visions that are policy-based and cultural-based that are in the realm around public safety or workers' rights. They need to be civically engaged projects. So absolutely responding to like a critical issue that is impacting the community in which this collaboration or partnership is embedded and or serving. I hope that answers your question. Alicia, I had another question around organizations submitting 2 LOIs for different visions or policy. Really, I think that what you want to do is prioritize and focus on the vision or policy that your collaboration truly believes it can move forward. There won't be necessarily multiple LOIs, but sometimes there may be an organization that is fiscally sponsoring another group that has a vision for policy change, cultural change, or social change. So if that organization is a 501c3 and is working towards something and also is fiscally sponsoring other groups through their 501c3 status, that is a way that we might see letters of intent, but really being clear within that letter of intent, which groups or partnerships or collaborations are working towards what vision. Vanessa, would you have anything to add there?
I'm sorry, no. I was just trying to manage something else in the background here.
Okay.
So
yeah. No problem. Okay, moving on from Bianca. Do we need to have our collaborative partners 100% confirmed by the time that the LOI is due? Within the requirements that are definitely listed on the guidelines and on the website and in the FAQs, you certainly need to be able to show that there is an MOU and a very clear collaboration in place with these collaborative partners. There may be groups that submit letters of intent if they pass an eligibility quiz for collaborations that are developing. Maybe groups are coming together for the first time, but those groups have the history and the capacity and the opportunity to work together towards this shared vision around policy in a just city. So if it's a new collaborative partnership, that's okay, but you definitely need to show that there is an agreement and a commitment with that potential collaboration.
Yeah, I would just want to underline something about that you said, Anika, which is, this is going to be a highly, highly, highly competitive process because there are only 3 grants that we can make. I would say those partnerships that have some kind of track record. I mean, we know that this work takes time and it's complicated. And that, the stronger some kind of relationship that you have with your partners and your community, I think the better chance that you will have. The application is open to new partnerships, but I would say it is important to play to your strengths, and I'll leave it at that.
Hello, everybody. It's Roberto here. I just want to add a little comment about partnering with the public agency. You can partner with the libraries. You can partner with a department of city government like a transportation. You can partner with the Parks and Recs. It doesn't have to be City Hall. So, which is all to say that policy change happens at a variety of different institutions. It could be transportation. It could be the planning department, but it could also be a senior center. It could be so I'm just letting you don't cage yourself in the official government of elected officials kind of realm of operations.
Thank you for that, Roberto. And we'll definitely be hearing from the fund partnership team as we answer these questions. And if there's a question that we need to come back to, we certainly will. So moving forward, there is a question from Wanda that says, what can or should documentation look like? And this would be determined more as those partnerships and collaborations are moved forward in terms of the full proposal and awarded. In terms of documentation, that up to $25,000 stipend could look like different things, but we want to make sure that we are creating that bridge between what is funded and what the collaborations are working towards and what we share with the field. How does this inform our ecosystem? How does the collaboration provide the prototype and example that we can share for our community at large to tune into, learn from, understand? And so documentation could look many different ways, but it needs to make visible the work of the collaboration and the intention and goals that they have for this vision of a just city. Do other members of our team want to speak to that further?
No, I think you nailed it. I think the documentation can take many forms. It could be written, it could be video, it could be photography, it could be a vodcast, it could be a podcast. But as Anika said, yes, we want it to reveal what could be helpful for others to learn from your process and be able to take it to maybe to their own communities and be able to learn from your experience.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. We have a few more questions here. I'm going to jump to Kareem. How involved with the process is the non-lead organization involved? For instance, can they be the one who submits the application? Can they be the one who is a primary contact? So for this award, again, emphasizing that it is going to be highly competitive and it really is seeking collaboration, deep collaboration and commitment to collaboration between partner groups. So a cultural organization with a social justice organization and centering artists and cultural practitioners in the work. The lead applicant and the partner need to collaborate on the letter of intent, need to have alignment around what they intend to do together, how they intend to accomplish the goals and what the shared vision is. And so the lead applicant would be like a primary contact, but you will have to provide the name and contact information of those, the other co-partner in the group. If there are multiple sort of formations within a group, we really, this award is really going to a lead applicant and a partner. And so you'll need to be able to show and speak to how that collaboration would be resourced, how it'd be structured and set up, and have a vision for that if you're invited to submit a full proposal. Okay. I believe I just answered your question, Leva. Okay. So we got in nature. Will there be future breakout rooms where people could be able to show their letters of intent to make sure it aligns with the grants? Interesting. That's a good question, but that is not something that the fund was providing in terms of sort of facilitating a collaboration or facilitating the completion of letters of intent. That is something that really needs to be situated with those partners applying. As far as being able to ask technical questions or, you know, getting information about the application process that you want a little more detail on, I would definitely recommend you schedule some time with me. And I will do my best to answer those questions and or find out by connecting with our fund partners around the answers to your questions. Thank you for that. Vanessa, I'm just gonna kick this one over to you randomly just to give us some spaciousness here. And it looks like we have like maybe 4 more questions. So this question is about budget from Bianca. In terms of the $500,000 operating budget requirement, is this based off of the financials that we need to provide from the previous year? Will we have a $500,000 budget in our upcoming Oh, I'm sorry. You're sharing that you will have a $500,000 budget in your upcoming fiscal year, which you're in the process of confirming. Vanessa?
Yeah. I might want to kick this to the funder, any of the funder partners who would want to weigh in on this. I mean, again, I'll explain that what we're looking for is capacity to handle the funds, because this is a collaboration. It's not just about your organization. This collaboration will also require a memorandum of understanding between the participating organizations, and that I mean, what we'd like to see is a track record of being able to handle funding and allocation responsibly. That's principally what this is a proxy for, actually. And I'm not sure if any of the funders who are on the webinar would like to weigh in about what they think about this.
And I agree with what you're saying. What we're looking for is a track record. So you would need to have that budget, $500,000 budget in place at the time you're applying. So if that's not where you are right now, maybe the other organizations that you'll be applying with, maybe their budget is at the $500,000 mark, and they can be the lead organization on the application. But one or the other would need to have that budget in place at the time that you are applying.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
I think we might have missed a couple of questions higher up in the Q&A. I'm not sure.
I'm
um,
definitely going through each one. I'm
Oh.
looking at, check the answer questions maybe, and I think maybe a question went away by an attendee. They kind of took their question down, but let's keep going. And I think I do see maybe a couple questions in the chat. We want to make sure we get your questions recorded. So if you can please drop them in the Q&A. And I see 1, 2, 3, 4 questions sitting in our Q&A right now. So this next one is from Miles. What's the definition of a social change organization? Does it need to be an organization or group which practices advocacy? Does it need to be primarily an advocacy organization? Or can it be an organization whose mission is to bring about or catalyze social change? I kind of think you answered your own question, Miles. Yes, a social change organization is an organization whose mission is to bring about or catalyze social change. Social change and social impact and social justice cover a wide range of issue areas, as kind of discussed earlier in the webinar, but also is on our guidelines and in our FAQs. So there are a myriad of issues that impact Black, Indigenous, people of color communities and groups that can range from policy-based issues around land use to economic justice, gender justice, LGBTQ plus issues, environmental issues. So we're looking at how your collaboration brings together a vision for justice and a just city related to a social issue that partners with the cultural organization and centers, cultural practitioners that are not just visual artists or performers. They could be storytellers, griots, various kinds of cultural workers. And so I hope that that provides more clarity for you. They can be an advocacy organization that is working towards a policy change or legislative change, but it has to also obviously fit within the guidelines we described around 501c3 and 501c4 work. So yes, social change, social justice is about transforming, transmuting, evolving, and creating a more just society. And there are many issues that our Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities in Oakland are having to navigate and deal with to bring about that change. So thank you for, go ahead, Vanessa.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just piggyback on what Anika said in terms of the guidelines. What we have found, of course, there are many cultural organizations that have a social justice vision in their mission. And part of what we're getting at in terms of identifying specifically a social change organization, which isn't to say they don't have any cultural components, it's just to say that there is the frame of how we were thinking of a social change organization is being concerned with that broader idea of policy and practice that can go to scale. So it's not necessarily about just looking at individuals in particular, but really thinking about whole groups of folks that could be impacted by positive social change shifts in practice or policy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, a good place also, just continue to look as a resource. The website, the frequently asked questions have really projected some of the things that we thought could come up as you are completing the application and letters of intent in terms of the kind of projects or collaborations to support its sector issue areas in social change. As Vanessa just stated, it's really looking at what you will be addressed and what the vision is that you have for the change and what your communities will be doing as they're centered in the work and what track record you have to work in that community for social change for that particular issue and how strong your collaboration is. So just want to reiterate that in the FAQs. That's what we mean by sector or issue area. That's what we mean by social change organizations. There's a question around the work sample. And so we are again, talking about a work sample that is a relevant example of social change work your organization or partner has engaged in. There are many cultural organizations that have run or developed social change collaborations or projects. So you may have an example of that work. Those work samples can take the form of a written report. It could be a policy paper, could be PowerPoint slides, a film, a video, an audio sample, or some other form of documentation that provides and illustrates the work of your organization, the work of your collaborative group. So thank you, Wanda, for that question. And then we have just 2 more questions. So I want to move through those and begin wrapping up. This is from Kareem. Did Roberto say that you can partner with places like the library and other city agencies? Yes. There are other agency partnerships. I believe I heard Roberto say that. It's not that this application or collaboration has to include like the city per se, but there may be city agencies, Parks and Rec, or other groups that you identify that would be strong collaborators and partners for moving that policy and issue area forward.
Hey, can I press? I'm going to ask Roberto, I hope he's still on, or any of the other funders, which the thing about working with a public agency, the tricky part is that we are asking that the partners be BIPOC led. Of course, they have to be based in Oakland. So if you're working with an agency that's based in Oakland, and whose purview is Oakland, then that's great. But the issue, if you are addressing particular communities, for example, that you are trying to lift up, some example of something that they're trying to do that is a radical reimagining, of the way something could be that isn't currently. It can be a little bit tricky for a public agency to be able to have that kind of focus. So Roberto, I just wanted to.
No, I think it's complicated. Let's say you're working with BART, and it's a public agency, but you're working with an equity group inside BART who's trying to deal with the challenge of access to public transportation. And you have an idea that may be eligible. I'm sort of saying that the library or the park agency, I think you would be beneficial to identify which element in that institution you are partnering with, because as a whole, you're going to partner with Parks and Recs, that just saying that is weak. You need to say who. The gardeners at San Antonio Park who doing ... That's has a little more muscle. I'm probably not, I maybe have muddled the waters more, but that's kind of, I don't want to shut the door completely on the role of public institutions. And I also will sort of say, public institutions are trying in some ways to address questions of equity.
Yes.
So, it's really up to the partnership to figure out how that may look like.
Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you both for those responses. I think that's very clarifying and very helpful to the group. We have 2 more questions, and I think we're going to wrap it up. There's a question from Eliza asking about somatic healing being considered a cultural practice. My response, and I definitely want to open it up to the partnership, and Vanessa, if you have thoughts on this. I think that the definition of the cultural practice and cultural workers, and we have a broad, vision of what that is. It is definitely included in the FAQs. Issues of well-being and healing, I think, have historically been centered in cultural practices and indigenous practices of people all over the world. So I would not suggest that it couldn't be. I think that it's really about what you're proposing and what that collaboration and partnership is seeking to bring about in terms of a just practice, a just city, in terms of the goals of the fund and the mission. That would be my response. Anybody else want to weigh in on that? Somatic healing or healing modalities as cultural practice?
Hi, this is Roberto. I see that as eligible. I will only, my caveat, I would hope that the applicant would talk about the civic body. And make the case why the healing associated with a group or an individual impacts the civic body of the city of Oakland.
Thank you, Roberto. Last question, and just like maybe a couple of points we might need to make sure we revisit as we close out from Laura. If it is a new project, how do we show a work product? So good question. Also, this is in our FAQs. You'll need to be able to provide a work sample of social work that your collaborative group has done. Even if it's a new collaboration and a new group coming together, that just idea and that just vision needs to be expressed as a link between the work that your collaboration has done. You need to be able to show that there's a history and that the collaboration has a capacity to carry out the project or collaboration.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that. One of the things that we are open to, we are looking for within the partnership a track record of having knowledge and experience of working on policy issues or things or ideas, civic ideas that can scale. So it could be something that you did with somebody else, maybe not with this particular partner, but it might be an experience that the participants have had previously. So, I mean, good point that we have invited new collaborations, and it's a good question to ask. How do we show a track record if we haven't collaborated together before? But it really is about asking within the partnership, is there experience and knowledge of doing policy facing work?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that, Vanessa. We want to just restate a couple of things that I think are really critical for all of you to hear. For lead applicants, in terms of what we will award, we will not award a grant to a public agency as a lead applicant, but the lead applicants can collaborate with public agencies, as has been discussed with Roberto's kind of description, and as we talked about a minute ago. Also, we want to make sure that there is one application per collaboration. So please do not submit more than one letter of intent if you're eligible to move forward. Please be sure you do not submit more than one letter of intent. There's a caveat that I think is important, again, around fiscal sponsorship. There may be groups that are fiscally sponsoring other groups that want to apply, and that organization or collaborative group also wants to apply, but those have to be completely separate applications, separate visions, separate intentions. So not be able to submit multiple LOIs for a lead applicant. The recording will be available post this webinar. It may take a day or so or a little bit to post it on the website, but there will be a link for that. I see that was a question in the main chat. Again, the work sample does not have to be an artistic work sample that you submit. It really needs to be a sample of work that has attempted to shape racial or social justice oriented practices or policies in those issue areas we talked about, which range anywhere from community development to economic justice, et cetera. To schedule time with me, Anika, the fund manager, again, the link to the Calendly is on the website, but I'm also going to go back a couple of slides here so you can see what that is. You can schedule 15-minute phone clinics with me on Wednesdays and Thursdays from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Pacific. It's at calendly.com/Anika, ANYKA/15MIN. Calendly.com/Anika/15-minute. So I want to make sure that you all see that. So thank you, everybody. We really appreciate your time today and all of the attendance and all of the wonderful questions that came through. We want to definitely encourage you to get your applications in, to complete your eligibility quiz, be transparent, be clear about that. The fund is really to support Black, Indigenous, people of color communities and collaborations. So we want to make sure that we lift that up. And if there are further questions that could be answered over email, please feel free to send those to the Just City email, which is on the screen as well. If you need some technical assistance with your application or have questions. Thank you again to all of our fund partners. Thank you to Vanessa. Thank you to Sam, who's been doing a great job behind the scenes. This is Anika Howard, and we're signing off. Take care, everyone. We look forward to.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.